What's up, everybody? Metal Dave Glessner here, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, bringing you another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Today, we are joined by guitarist Bob Catlin of SA Slayer, a much celebrated underground metal band from here in Central Texas, all the way back to the early 80s. Put out an EP called Prepare to Die that is a highly collectible piece of vinyl. It's been recently reissued. But if you have an original, it's worth hundreds of dollars. I've even seen them at record collections going for record conventions. Yeah, I've seen them at record conventions going for like $1,000. Prepare to Die. What an awesome album cover. 4-song EP, or is it 5 if you count the door? I guess
if you count the door, but the door is like a 1 minute long.
Yeah. Anyway, SA Slayer is reunited. We talk about that in the podcast today with Bob. Jason, our very own Jason McMaster, is handling lead vocals in place of the dearly departed Steve Cooper.
Yes.
SA Slayer has been dormant for decades, but there was a call from a promoter, I guess, at Hell's Heroes. Is this Christian Larson, the magic man who puts these things together?
Yeah, he's he's the idea guy, I guess, whether it's inadvertent. I don't think that he's trying to be this guy that comes up with these, let's get these guys and those guys. You know, I'm not saying that Hell's Heroes is the same thing as Keep It True, but you know what?
It's kind
of related in its own way.
Right.
Next year Hell's Heroes, which is this will be out next year. This episode is coming out next year.
It's going to be out in 2025.
Right.
Yes.
So at Hell's Heroes this year, I can say in March of 25, Coroner is playing, Swiss band Coroner.
Yeah,
Saxon is one of the headliners, and you'll have to go look at the list of it's considerably badass.
Did I see Power Trip or Fugitive on that?
I think they're playing one day. I think they might be one of the headliners.
Okay, that might be wishful.
It might be Fugitive. It might be Fugitive. I don't recall, but
okay.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's gonna
SA Slayer.
Yeah, it's gonna be fantastic. That's pretty much what kind of sealed the deal. But as we talked to Bob today, in small circles, this has been being talked about for decades, for at least 10 or 15 years. I know that. Some hint and idea, Steve Cooper passed away, I want to say like 10 years ago, maybe more. I kind of feel like I need to know that. I should probably look that up and make some calls.
Yeah.
Because people are going to ask, and I feel like I, of all people, should probably know. And the point that I'm making is I tell the story, but I'll mention that, some people will talk to members of SA Slayer and go, what do we got to do to get this together and do some gigs, do some festivals, do some gigs? People want to see this, a reunion. And I was approached by Don Van Staveren probably in private years ago. And then Dave McLean again mentioned it to me in private. And I'm just like, hey, I'm waiting for the phone to ring. Where's the gig? Just tell me where the gig is, right? Yeah. And that's been years of me going, yeah, well, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, it's finally happening.
Yes.
So I'm extreme, and I've mentioned this so many times in interviews on the internet and stuff, that it's such an honor because I've known those guys since I was a kid, and I was friends with Cooper. We have the same birthday. It's terrible that he is not here and can't do this, because it would just be that much cooler to have the original, of course. But it's going to be crazy, and this like weird internal like thing is going to happen with me, at least, because I was a big fan of theirs.
Oh yeah,
So.
yeah. there's already a huge buzz about this reunion, and some of that stems from just the fact that SA Slayer has a long-standing reputation in Central Texas as being one of the celebrated underground metal bands, peers with Watchtower. I mean, you
Yes.
guys are often mentioned in the same breath, Watchtower, SA Slayer. There's also, of course, the Slayer comparison and the Slayer versus Slayer. We talk a little bit about that with Bob. But even more so, a couple members of SA Slayer, Dave McClain on drums and Donnie Van Stavern, have gone on to do other things that have been widely recognized. McClain, of course, spent years as the drummer in Machine Head and is now the drummer in Sacred Reich. And Donnie has been doing Riot for decades.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny that Dave McClain was in Sacred Reich before Machine Head, and then went back to Sacred Reich.
Yeah. So them branching out sort of brings in another fan base, I guess.
For sure.
Just by their exposure to a mass audience. So SA Slayer was kind of like this little treasured band of ours here in Texas.
Yeah.
But over the years, the reputation and the lore has grown, and with a couple members going on to international sort of fame, that's grown the reputation as well. So definitely something a lot of people are looking forward to. You mentioned you guys are doing Hell's Heroes in March. You're doing Keep It True, which is in Germany. That's
April,
a big festival.
end of April. Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of buzz, and there's probably some speculation about some warm-up gigs to be.
Well, you would think that a band that just to avoid any confusion, even though around here there's not really any confusion, that's where the SA got lopped onto or sewn in front of the word Slayer because do your homework, kids, and you'll learn a lot. But as in San Antonio, Slayer, SA Slayer it's a must. It has to happen.
Yeah, you would think
it has to happen. I mean, are we just going to rehearse, once and then wait for Hell's Heroes? Because Don's got to hit the road with Riot.
Yeah.
You see the point? It's going to be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So it's kind of doesn't make any sense to do rehearsals and then he's just going to jump and go do Riot. But if that happens, that's why we would have not done a warm-up show. That's why I mentioned in this podcast that if we do one, it's got to happen the week before that Riot Saxon show at the, what's it called? The Tobin Center? Yeah.
Tobin, yes.
So that's, to give it the full bill, that's Lizzie Borden, Riot, and Saxon at the Tobin Center in San Antonio on the 21st of March.
It's March. I don't know.
I think it's the 21st. I think it's Friday the 21st.
Yeah.
And then Saxon's the headliner on the day that, and Riot's playing too. So Don's doing double duty. Turns out you don't know this yet, Dave, but I think, or maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but it doesn't matter. Assume me. I don't care. I think Dave McClain is doing double duty at Hell's Heroes as well. Yeah, I won't tell you who, but you'll have to look at the list of people playing and take a big guess. Yeah, 'cause it'll surprise you a little bit.
Well, I know that a lot of people are looking forward to this. Once it was announced, everybody started buzzing. And as we talk in the podcast, not only is this a treat for the fans, but all the players involved, you, our guest today, Bob Catlin, Art Villarreal, Donnie Van Stavern, and Dave McClain. You guys go back to, your childhood. You've known each other since you were like 18 years old.
18 years old, yeah. And when you think about 1983, it's not a couple of days ago.
Exactly.
So, and, we're all, still kicking like a chicken. So it's important to realize that. And we all still fucking rock. I mean, I'm not tooting my own horn. We're still fucking here,
Yeah.
And everyone's busy, and that's so great that it was that this lined up, and those guys were all able to do it. I mean, I would have like stopped the traffic to do the gig. I would have
Yeah.
just thrown away what I had going already. But no,
Yeah.
I locked in this stuff. As soon as they told me, I locked it all in, and that's exactly what they all had to do. So.
Well, I know a lot of people are looking forward to the gigs, and we got a great history lesson today with our guest today on the Talk Louder podcast, SA Slayer guitarist Bob Catlin. Bob, welcome. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
It has.
Thanks for having me here. This is going to be fun.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Wow, big news. I mean,
I already can't wipe the smile off my face. Just so you know. I already cannot wipe it off my face.
He's been wearing that smile since we found out you were going to be on the show. So,
well, I'm so glad that I am.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
We're glad you are too. The reunion of SA Slayer. This is big news. Why don't you guys tell us how this all came about? Because for all intents and purposes, SA Slayer has not been an active band for decades. But
let's go back in time a little bit. Bob, do you remember when Steve Cooper passed away?
I do remember.
Okay. Can you tell it, not to be a bummer? I mean, everyone loves Steve Cooper, the now passed on lead singer for SA Slayer. But do you recall when he passed?
No, I don't actually. He and I had not been in touch for years.
Okay.
We had just gone different directions.
Like since mid 80s kind of thing? Or
we would still run into each other in the 90s.
Oh, good. Okay.
Usually with Donnie Van Stavern. I would run into the pair of them. Donnie would have gotten Steve to come out to the kind of haunts that alcoholic rock and roll people in the late 80s and early 90s would be at. And then Cooper would be with him, and it would be Old Home Week. But I wasn't really in touch with him at all.
Okay. All right.
So, no, I don't have any insights or memories or anything like that. I just remember being very, very bummed upon hearing the news,
Of course, that was in our heavy metal community especially, but of course his family. But in the Slayer family, that's not good. In San Antonio, Steve, and you'll have some insight, probably Dave too, because he's a San Antonian as well. If either of you guys recall, just want to talk about Steve and what he was doing pre-SA Slayer, pre-Slayer. Liquid Sky?
That's the only thing that I know of. When we met him, that's the band that we stole him from. But he had already been gigging quite a lot. They had the record, the Kiss FM.
Yeah, the Homegrown.
Or was it K-Mac? Even.
No, it was Kiss.
It was Kiss.
99.5.
Yeah, the Homegrown.
Yeah,
which had that great
the record.
song.
Yeah.
Great Liquid Sky song.
Yeah, Cry for the King.
Yeah, Cry for the King. What a good band that was.
Yeah.
But I didn't see them but once.
Okay. Well, once was enough for...
They got really, really popular around here because, of course, the record got a lot of airplay. And it's a great song.
Yeah.
Jonathan plays his ass off, and Steve's vocals are just amazing.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything more about them than that.
Well, you know that you had to have him in your heavy metal band.
Well, yeah, we did. And then, and that was before we even saw him,
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that was just hearing him and talking to him. So when he came over to audition, as it were, that was quite a mind blower because he's such a fucking metal rock star, and we're just a bunch of kind of kids,
Yeah.
Art and I in particular. I would say Don and Dave were a bit more worldly, but Art and I were a bit less experienced. And so Cooper coming out, and he wasn't decked out, but he was in enough garb to where it was like, wow, this is the real shit.
He had his cuffs on and his bandanas and such.
He had the leather jacket. He had the cuffs because it was, as I recall, it was chilly.
And this is
I could be wrong. You'd have to talk to Art.
Okay, and we will. But this is 1981.
See, that's where whatever number I give you is going to be wrong. I'm always a year off. I'm saying this would be 81.
That's what I was gonna. That was my guess.
This is when whatever sort of drama happened with Chris Kronk to make us think that this isn't the guy for us.
Oh wow! Okay.
And then Steve sounding so magnificent, it seemed like, well, let's give this guy a shot.
Yeah.
And yay.
I'm
so
just
for
glad
people that aren't familiar with SA Slayer, when you're describing Steve Cooper, he kind of had the whole KK Downing look. He had that bleached white blonde hair, and it was straight and long, and he wore all the metal garb. I can see your point. When he walks in the door, you go, yeah, that guy's a heavy metal rock star.
Yeah, no, he was, because I can guarantee none of us were dressed out.
Yeah,
you know, that afternoon or evening, whatever it was.
But to be clear here, you're making people like believe just by this explanation here between the three of us, for fuck's sake. When do you think Steve Cooper just woke up and looked like that? In my mind, he does. In my mind, he does.
You had to have some forethought to be that cool looking. You know, if that happened natural, man, that would be weird.
Yeah, he had it. He had it
but
down.
But he was
though.
mysterious to us, man. That's what you guys may not realize. He was, you know, because we were young. He was several years older than we were,
right?
Which made him this, you know, maybe not unattainable, but certainly he came across as a lot more experienced and a lot more worldly. And he was a mad partier, which I don't know if we're supposed to mention that or not. And so that was kind of impressive too.
So he had been,
it's like, golly, this guy's the whole package.
He had been around, and you could confirm by, well, other than him being mysterious, by reputation, you could confirm eventually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. And boy, he just came in, and we were doing a lot of cover material, of course.
Well, you were kids.
And we were also really cocky because we were pretty good. And so that was our way to entice him to come over. Was like, well, we can do this and we can do that. Any of that Judas Priest stuff, note for note, all the double stuff, perfect. Iron Maiden, better than anyone you've ever heard because you weren't at the Iron Maiden gig, right? And so we were cocky. Imagine Don Van Staveren being cocky. Weird, right? I know.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Steve came over and we challenged him on a really difficult song, and he killed it. Of course, we had to kill it too.
Was it Island of Domination?
No, it was not Invader. The one about the Indians from Stained Class.
Oh.
What's that one called?
Savage.
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 Yeah.
Savage.
Yeah. Right? You can do this. You can do anything.
Yes.
And he just came in and nailed it.
Wow.
But we had worked it out. So, you know.
So again,
I just got chills, bro.
Yeah.
I just got chills.
I don't know that we ever played it out, but that was the audition song as I recall.
So again, a quick recap for people watching and listening that aren't familiar. We're taking for granted because we're all from Central Texas that everybody knows the makeup of SA Slayer. But we're talking about Donnie Van Staveren was the bass player who went on to play with Riot and some other bands, including Evil United. Dave McClain was your drummer who spent a lot of time in Machine Head and is now in Sacred Reich. Steve Cooper, who we're mentioning, replaced Chris Kronk and sadly passed away a few years ago and is no longer with us. And then the guitarist was a tandem of yourself and
Art Villarreal
Art
at the
Villarreal.
time.
Art Villarreal.
Yeah.
He and
So
I
just
went
to give
guitar
people a
dating.
little background on the pedigree of the band, these were great local players, and some of them went on to do some national, international stuff. And so for those who weren't aware, I just wanted to kind of fill in the back.
But
Yeah,
this was way before that because we were just kids.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah, of
this
course.
is I remember Prepare to Die, which is 83, summer 83. Okay, was when that was on, like you could go to buy it on at Hog Wild in San Antonio. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So some kind of distribution eventually, of course, but you know, when you're in a when you're in a little pond and you have a record out, you're all of a sudden a big fish.
Right.
Well, especially in our case, Joe Anthony, who was the rock and roll guru on the air in San Antonio with KMAC and Kiss FM, he really liked us. He liked the high vocals. He was really in high vocal bands, you know. He was playing Triumph in the 70s. He was playing Rush and Judas Priest in the 70s. He liked the high vocals, and he really liked the way Steve looked. He liked that long blonde hair.
Oh, yeah.
He liked that leather studded metal thing. And so he played us a lot, which made us famous in San Antonio.
Right.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time you held your own album in your hand? Because I know that's a huge milestone for any guy in a band. Your work comes tangible.
When the boxes came in to the Bob O'Neill Sound Studio, oh my goodness, it was exciting.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Because this album cover is one of the greatest album covers of all time.
I love that cover.
I mean, it's just so metal. Yeah. So I was going to ask you, is there any meaning to these symbols?
Well, there is. And it's a shame that he won't talk to me anymore because I said something mean about him, about how that record didn't get released for a long time after it should have. And he took offense. But Bob O'Neill, he's the reason that record cover looks like that. He had the vision of the goat skull. He had the vision of the witch's door. And so I do remember he and I he had a nice car cruising around the backwoods in the hill country, looking for a door, looking and finding a piece of fence, and then him talking them out of it.
Wow, that's good.
Wow.
Right. And then taking it back to the Bob O'Neill Sound Studio. And I want to say it was he and Mike Taylor, trombone, who people know him as, that copied all the witches' runes. But that was some real thing that they had taken from the library because there was no internet.
Yeah, those symbols are you can see those on a lot of occult
that's
books
to
that deal with the
something.
occult. Yeah,
I don't believe though that in The Conjuring you would have a bleeding goat skull, but that was so cool when they put the hose through the back and were pumping it. It was a great photo shoot.
Awesome.
It's an awesome album cover, and also I was going to mention that indirectly, the guy, Ruben Rodriguez, the artist that came up with the logo and this warrior demon serpent guy on the back cover.
Yes.
Ruben is indirectly responsible for Jason and I first meeting.
Really?
And
my dog Jimmy came up there for a minute.
Yeah, and he's been running around back there the whole time.
That's good. He's a good
pets.
dog.
Yeah.
So Ruben and I used to work together at a sheet metal factory in San Antonio.
Shit. Where?
Yeah. This would have been the late 80s.
Wow.
And it was called Dot Metals, and a bunch of headbangers from San Antonio went in and out of that shop, and Ruben worked there. And of course, he and I gravitated towards each other because we're metalheads. I find out he's an artist, and then I had him paint this Motorhead on the back of my leather jacket, the Motorhead thing. Let me see if I can get this in the camera.
The war pig.
And Ruben did that, eh?
Ruben did that, and then I took it to an in-store, and Motorhead autographed it.
Oh, that's super cool.
So here's the deal. I'm in Corpus Christi at a club over the Thanksgiving holidays, and I'm wearing this jacket. And I'm there with my buddies' bands from San Antonio. And
This is in 1990 something.
yeah, it's the early 90s. And the band's on stage playing. I get this tap on my shoulder. I turn around, and it's Jason. And I don't know him yet, but I know who he is. And so when the music dies down, he introduces himself, and he says, "That's a badass jacket." And he goes, "I'm Jason." And I go, I'm thinking to myself, I know who you are. At this point, he's in Dangerous Toys. And I'm like, you're the guy on the radio and on MTV. And that was our very first meeting. And he came back to the hotel room with us after the show. And that's the very first time I met Jason. And it's because of the jacket that was painted by Ruben Rodriguez, who did.
Wow, that's great. That's great.
Lots of.
Ruben's a true crazy person, man. You know, that's another thing. You know, not many people have artwork from really crazy people.
Yeah.
So, well, I love Ruben.
It's a lasting logo that he did for you. And I've had that jacket for, oh my God, since, in fact, Motorhead was on the Orgasmatron tour when they signed that jacket. That's how old that, and the jacket's a little older than that. So that's how long it's had. Yeah.
Excellent.
So
that's the connection.
So you guys, you get Cooper and you put together these songs in 81-ish. And did you know Bob O'Neill, where you guys ended up recording the Prepare to Die stuff? Did you know him already? Did you
guys... the way that came about, we were still rehearsing at Art's house in the Northeast side. And I don't remember the name of the local magazine. It might have been It's Only Rock and Roll. It might have been one of the earlier ones. But they had an article about recording studios.
Oh.
And they had, maybe half a dozen profiled. And for some reason, we liked what we read about the boss. It was under construction. He was looking for people, so I bet it was cheaper rates, which was exciting to us because we didn't have any money. Right. But that's how we ended up going with Bob, and we recorded 3 songs there with him, which were one of Art's songs, perhaps Blitzkrieg, perhaps Panzer, maybe the medley of the two. And Prepare to Die, and perhaps one other. And they came out pretty good. And the guys got a kick out of us because we were really, really, really into what we were doing. We were very intense.
Of course.
And we were pretty fucking good. And we were really cocky. And so they found that all very entertaining. And so we were going to play a gig at the Eisenhower Road Flea Market Battle of the Bands.
Yes.
And I don't know if this is the first or second time that we had done that, but it was a spectacular gig. The place is just filled to the brim. There are people literally in the rafters. It's in this weird outdoor barn. It's all fucking weird, man. All thrown together by this guy named Rick Ireland, who was a real shyster.
Yeah. We know Rick.
Yeah, but from the Rock Around the Clock record store, right?
Yeah.
So he had the whole thing together. And I don't know if we were even allowed to be in the competition. But maybe at this one we were. Nonetheless, we fucking killed it. And the place was just filled with people that were really there who liked us. And so these guys that we had just recorded this demo with look at each other and go, dang, can we capitalize on this? And so they offered to put out a record. And that ended up becoming the Prepare to Die EP.
Nice.
And Rainforest Records. That was the afternoon that Rainforest Records was formed, was when Rick Shreve and Bob O'Neill watched us at the Eisenhower Road Flea Market in front of hundreds of insane metalheads.
Nice. What year do you think this was? Still 81?
I want to say I was still in high school.
That would be 81.
As we were, yeah, so that would be 81, but Art will tell you when it really was.
Okay.
So I've seen this. This is a reissue, obviously, but I've seen this original pressings of this record at record conventions going for hundreds and thousands of dollars.
It's insane, right?
What's the highest price you've ever seen on your own EP?
I've seen $350 that someone paid for it.
$350.
$350 for the EP.
Wow.
Which I thought, wow, that's quite a lot of money.
I have two of them. Their original pressing. One of them I bought from Antone's in Austin, Texas, for $80 during the pandemic online.
So, Bob,
well, that seems quite reasonable.
Yeah,
Bob,
I have an unplayed Rainforest that was given to me for wiring this guy's house for electricity. Instead of paying me money, which I really needed, he instead hands me a cellophane wrapped, unopened Prepare to Die. And the cellophane literally popped open as he was handing it to me just because it was tight. So the record's never been played. And my good friend Chip Alexander's wife, Lara, is a framer, a framestress, a framing professional.
Yeah.
And so she mounted it in this great frame to where you can see the front and the back and the record, and it's never been played and it never will be.
That's
nice.
amazing.
Yay.
Because it's highly collectible, and I think it started off as being a collectible item among San Antonio metal fans and Texas metal fans, of course. But now, I mean, it's had international appeal for years and years and years. I mean, this thing is highly sought after. That's got to just boggle your mind.
It's nuts. It's also nuts to me that it's been bootlegged a bunch of times. It's been released with sanction a bunch of times. It keeps getting released. I've seen picture discs. The picture discs are wickedly cool, right?
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It's a great cover. It looks great on a picture disc. I'd like one of those. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have one.
Well, whoever's out there listening or watching this, if you have one, you need to hook Bob up.
Make a reasonable offer. The other thing I would love is the double vinyl Slayer X Slayer.
Yes.
Right? Someone made a bootleg of me.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. That's badass.
And for those, again, who aren't familiar, the Slayer X Slayer is a bootleg recording of the night that SA Slayer played live with LA Slayer in San Antonio. And it's a gig that's, I mean, it's mythological here in Texas.
You can look it up on, it's not a unicorn. You can look it up on Discogs.
It happened.
So it's happening.
It's there.
Slayer versus
I've heard so many funny stories about that gig that have no basis in truth whatsoever.
Yeah.
Where people swear about how it was all a battle, know, and the winner, the winner takes all, and it's like, no, but that's a great story.
It is great.
But you guys were already basically broken up when that.
Oh, we were
happened.
completely 100% broken up.
Yeah,
We've been broken up all that summer. Don and Dave, to my recollection, were already working on Narita with Mark and Steve. Maybe Steve wasn't involved yet. Maybe it was just Don, Dave, and Mark.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's the Donnie thing there.
Yeah,
but they were already doing that.
Yeah.
They might already have recorded that demo by the time that we do Slayer.
Well, you guys did one more show, maybe a year later at Cameo Theater
in February of '85.
That's right, and I announced you guys.
Did you?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's online.
So, Bob, I know you're probably sick to death of talking about the Slayer versus Slayer gig, but you have a really unique story because you worked at a record store where the LA Slayer was doing an in-store signing the day of the gig, and they didn't know you were you were an employee at the store, but they didn't know you were in the SA Slayer band.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was a great day.
So tell us
It was a
about that
great
for
day. Well,
those
it was
who haven't heard the
fucking
story.
mad, right? It was a mall, which, you know, if you don't know what a mall is, you can watch a TV show. But it was a record store in a mall, so it's pretty straight, right? But it was run by Scott Womack, and his assistant manager was Harlan Glenn, the guys from Juggernaut.
Right.
Madly, Scott might be into music more than anyone I've ever known, and he was beloved in the by Hastings, the company. And so our store also did really, really well. So they let him do what he wanted, and he was doing in stores. And so he landed one with Slayer.
Which
and it
Hastings was this?
crazy.
Was this the one at Windsor Park Mall?
This is the one at Windsor Park Mall where there was almost a riot.
Right. Okay. Continue, please.
Close to the riot. And the riot had to do with the glass doors. The way that the mall was set up is there were, I'm going to say 14, but maybe 12-foot high glass panels that would slide out and lock. And that's how the stores in the mall were locked, right? So Scott's brilliant idea was to have ingress on one side. They come in, they get their signing, and then egress on the other, right? Brilliant concept if you're doing Vicky Carr. But Slayer, the people waiting started grabbing the panels and shaking them, and they're very flexible because they're so tall and they're made of glass, so they're going to break, and it's going to be tragic, right? So there was that little scare, and Scott had also made a wonderful table for the guys. He sent one of the employees to a butchery, and they came back with these big cow femurs, just covered with meat, right? Just nasty. And they tied them together with some wire, upside down crosses hanging above the table that you're under to get signed.
Wow.
Well, that's kind of fucking cool, right? And Harlan and Scott also really knew how to treat people well. And so Slayer come tooling up in their fucking Camaro with their U-Haul, right? Because this is way before they're famous. People don't know that.
So I want to jump.
Not always famous.
I want to jump in and say, this would have been, I don't have the date of that show, but on Thursday, November 29th of 1984, Militia Watchtower played with Slayer here in Austin.
The night before.
That it was the night before, so it would have been the 30th. So we're talking about the 30th. So the yellow Camaro and the U-Haul is true.
Yeah. And so they come tooling up to the mall.
You have Show No Mercy and Haunting the Chapel. The EP was brand fucking new, and that's all they had. They were playing a couple songs from Hell Awaits, but that record was not out yet. Continue, Bob.
So they come up and they're, very warmly welcomed. It's this great setup. I mean, the table's great. The crosses, fuck you. Those are amazingly cool. Yeah. Maybe there were even 3 of them.
Nice.
And then there's a lot of vodka and orange juice in the back room, and there's a lot of beer. Whatever they had on their rider, Harlan made sure there was a lot of. And so we're all in the back getting pretty toasted while Womack's, we being me and Harlan and Slayer, are in the back getting pretty toasted while Womack is being a manager and getting everything all set up. And so we just have this wonderful time. There's almost a riot. There's hundreds of people there to get the autographs. They had a great time. I mean, they're on their way up, right? So it's a wonderful day for them. And we've been drinking a bit. And so everyone's been having a good time. And then Kerry King, who's notoriously a gruff fella, I'd say is diplomatic.
Can be.
Looks at his watch and goes, oh, well, I guess it's time to get down there and see this other fucking Slayer band. And he looks at me and he goes, well, what do you know about them anyhow? because we've been hanging for hours drinking screwdrivers and having a good time. And I go, well, what do I know about them? I was guitarist too from the very first to the very last gig, man. And their jaws just hit the table, because how can you have this aggressive, shitty attitude about someone that you've just been having drinks and a very wonderful time with? So there was no weird bullshit. So we went down there and I introduced everybody. Kerry King was a bit gruff, but otherwise everyone was super friendly, and there was no awkward, ugly, shitty, well, fuck you, no, fuck you. Well, yeah, well, you broke up and you won and whatever. There was none of that.
Right.
But I do remember distinctly, we sound checked first. And I remember distinctly that the song To Ride the Demon Out was called, and Dave all gave us a look as if, all right, play it like you fucking mean it, because our audience is the band Slayer that we lost the whole thing to, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
And we fucking killed that song.
Wow.
Yeah.
To the point where they were like, wow. My recollection, at least, is that Jeff Hanneman and Tom Araya were thrilled with how good we were, and we continued to hang out and have drinks.
Yeah, and just again to set the record straight, you guys had been broken up. So the Slayer versus Slayer show against a lot of common percent. It's not a battle for the name. It's not a battle of any sort.
It's a wonderful bit of hyperbole, but it didn't even happen.
Right. So a promoter puts this gig together, and it goes down in metal history as Slayer versus Slayer. Yeah. There was really no verses to it.
No, there certainly wasn't.
It's a great idea.
Just a hell of a double bill.
Yeah, it's a great idea that a promoter had to, hey.
Well, and I tell you what, it filled that room. That was a standing room only with a line out the door. So he made his money. And I remember being particularly brokenhearted as I walked into the room after Don Van Staveren and I were just paid our $500 for the gig, and I'm watching the promoter counting out $5,000 to Kerry King. And I think to myself, well, yeah, they sure did fucking win, didn't they? But yeah, true story.
In that respect, I guess. So,
but yeah, it was a wonderful, fun day. It was a fun day, and both bands played really well.
And, you know, T-shirts were made, Slayer versus Slayer T-shirts, and they're sort of a collectible here in Texas and around the world. In fact, Tom Araya has been photographed wearing that T-shirt.
Well, he wore that shirt the last time they played in San Antonio.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right? So I was famous for a day.
Yeah, the shirt is the poster from the gig.
That's right. That's right. So but Tom was, you know, proudly wears that T-shirt. I think that's really cool. I think it says what you just said, that everybody had a great time that day. There was a mutual respect between the two.
Oh yeah. Oh, it was a lot. There's a picture that's on Facebook of he and I backstage after we've played, and he and I just goofing off, having fun, laughing. And that's how I remember that day. I remember Jeff Hanneman coming and jumping me on the back after our set and licking my ear and going, "You guys kick ass, you guys kick ass." And me not having any idea at all who it was. So I threw him off my back in a kind of wrestling move. And there he was on his back, and I'm helping up going, wow. But yeah, so it was a good day.
Did you guys? Did I read correctly that you toured with Metallica?
No, that never happened.
No, okay. Did you ever play?
We partied with Metallica, but we never played with Metallica.
Okay.
We wanted to be their friends.
Yeah,
but we never played with them.
Well, we were.
You know, they played that string of 3 gigs at the Cameo, but we weren't on it.
Yeah, I was there for that.
And before that,
Raven.
While we're talking about Metallica, Metallica supporting Raven on the Kill 'Em All for One tour at Daddy's down there on Fredericksburg Road. You guys were all there, and it was lightly attended, if I recall.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being like a packed.
There were more
gig.
people. We saw them together, you and I, at Club Foot, that same gig. And there were
that
more
would have
people.
that would have been the night before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was strange how there weren't that many people there, but
Yeah. But I got it was during Raven. I got on your shoulders and I rode the demon out.
I do remember that.
Jason riding on Bob's shoulders. Yeah, it was a good time. Well, yeah, we hung out with all night. That's the gig that me and Don and a bunch of other clowns just hung out all night with James at the bar. They just kept that place open until we left.
I don't understand how you guys were hanging out. I could not understand one word that the Gallagher brothers had to say. Not one.
It was James. It was James from Metallica, not Raven.
Oh, okay. Because you and I at the Club Foot had a conversation with one of the Raven brothers.
That is correct.
And you had an enthusiastic conversation with this gentleman, and I stood there and smiled, not understanding one fucking word he said to you. Not one. But I was just happy to be there, and you were holding your own. So if you couldn't understand, you were faking.
I was just acting like I just wanted to be from Newcastle so bad that I just acted like I remember. Do you remember I got elbowed in the face?
I don't remember.
I took a hit to the nose in the pit during Raven. Actually,
things were tough.
Yeah, and after the gig, I held my own, of course, and it's after the gig, and I'm outside just kind of cooling off and catching my breath, and John Gallagher came outside and found me. He goes, "Hey, I saw that happen to you. Are you all right?" And we've been friendly ever since.
Yeah, no, they're great. What a great band.
Yeah,
what a great band. I remember how exciting it was to see those bands too, right?
Yeah,
yeah. But no, we weren't on that.
No,
there's never a Metallica gig
Watchtower or SA Slayer never played with Metallica.
I thought you guys had.
No.
But there we go. One of those weird legends.
Right.
So for the sake of completing the story, let's jump ahead to Go for the Throat. By now, you're SA Slayer and the logo.
Well,
that's not really
whole weird thing with the Art leaving the band and Ron getting in the band.
Here we go.
Where Art is out of the band before Prepare to Die is released. Prepare to Die is not released due to some weirdness with the distribution company, which I believe was Dutch East Indies.
I think you're right.
Is that a real company?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay. There was some conflict with them and us concerning both Black Sabbath and what's the guy with the pan flute?
Jethro Tull.
The band Jethro Tull?
No. The pan flute. Like a new age guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he said it. Zamfir or something.
Zamfir, yeah. It was something involved with our pressing is being delayed because Black Sabbath and Zamfir. And I don't know shit, right? I'm a high school kid, whatever, but it keeps going and going. And there's some kind of nonsense once again between Bob O'Neill and his father, who was financing things. And I don't know shit. I don't want to say anything mean, but it seemed kind of clusterfucky even to a child. And so the record didn't come out for at least 8 months, maybe longer, right? And in the meantime, something weird happens between Dave McClain and Art Villarreal. I don't know exactly what it was, but I am told that Art is out and we need to find a new guitar player. And so I had been friends with Ron for years and had admired him greatly because he's Ron Jarzambek. Even back then when we were in high school, this guy's just light years above everybody with how he thinks about not only the guitar, but about electronics, recording. The guy's just a genius. And he's my friend. Wow, that's weird because I'm kind of a dumbass, right? Rock and roll. Yeah. but I play guitar and I like Rush. And so Ron and I become friends. So I've been buddies with Ron for years and years, since I was in the worst band ever called Blizzard back in 79 or 80. Anyhow, we're trying to find guitar players, and we've auditioned a couple and nothing was working right. And so on the off chance, I reached out to Ron, and yay, that all worked out something else. But Art never got any of the glory of the EP being popular around here, which it really was, because he had already been kicked out of the band. So that's, when you look at it, that's a bummer, because his playing on the record is stellar.
Yeah.
Right? He's a bad motherfucker.
Art's great. Art's amazing. But you didn't too shabby, and Art will agree, by stepping into the Ron Jarzombek world.
Well, yeah, that was a big step, Well,
you guys started putting together the songs eventually, right, with Ron for Go for the Throat.
I don't remember anything on Go for the Throat from Don having been presented to the band when Arthur was in the band.
Right.
What ends up becoming If You Want Evil was something that we had been playing around with back in the Prepare to Die era.
Okay.
But it was not yet that song. It was some of those riffs with whatever lyrics that Kronk and I had, which were completely different, that Cooper just, I would imagine, just disregarded entirely.
No, you make it your own. I mean, I think
that was his way, is to not even be distracted from what we were doing.
I've been the replacement singer so many times. When they show me material, I'm like, give me a version without that other person.
So anyhow, but I don't remember any of Go for the Throat having been presented when Art was in the band. Perhaps Go for the Throat, but that would be a Donnie question. I think it was all done with Ron.
Okay. Well, it sure sounds that way, because there's a lot of...
I can't speak for Donnie, but right now, as I'm going back and reviewing all this material to learn it for these upcoming gigs, man, it's a big step up. And I don't know if that is exclusively because of Ron, if it's a combination of so much time having passed and we were just better players. And then the third option that would go into the combination would be the tutelage of Mark Reale, who was, by the time that Go for the Throat was happening, was living there at Danville and spending a lot of time with me. So I would imagine a lot of time with Don. Yeah. I learned a lot from Mark Reale, and we just became better players.
Yeah. What is the time gap between Prepare to Die and Go for the Throat?
2 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would figure 2. I'd say that's fair.
Because the way that I remember was, and I'm not the aficionado, but I have some stock in Slayer.
You're probably a year closer than I am.
Well, the time, my story in a nutshell, I met Ricky Warhite, which was basically you guys' street team buddy. You rehearsed, you lived with, you partied with there on Danville. He was like, his house was the hub.
Oh, yeah. Well, Ricky Warhite.
I met him front row at Crocus Def Leppard in Austin in 1983. And I had only been in Watchtower a year, maybe. And we were the only people in the front row wearing leather jackets in Texas, right? Front row at a heavy metal show. And so we're rocking out and we're looking at each other and making faces and fist in the air, and we got cuffs on, and so we got married in the front row.
Well, I can see, having known both of you guys from that era, I see that happening, man.
So we exchanged numbers, and he's telling me about this band Slayer, and I'm telling him about Watchtower, and he's like, you gotta fucking come down to SA and hang out with us, fucking party and meet the Slayer dudes and you know, he's just telling me all about it, and I'm getting excited just hearing about it. So I go home and I tell Billy White all about it. So half of Watchtower climbs in my hunk of junk car like the next week, and we go down and we meet you. We meet. Of course, we go to Ricky Warhite's house, and that's on Danville. And
so is at this point is are Donnie and Dave living at Danville yet?
Dave McLean is living with Ricky and Billy Warhite, right? Mm-hmm. And then that's what I mean. It was kind of like Slayer Central, wasn't it?
Oh boy,
yeah. So
and that whole mad crew that would hang out there as well.
Right.
Oh my heavens!
Well, there were parties that
crazy people.
There were parties that I went to there. I would drive all the way from Austin to just hang out all night, and of course, I met all of you guys, and went to a couple of you guys' rehearsals, and found out that me and Steve Cooper had the same birthday. I mean, we were thick as thieves immediately, as you know, because Bob Catlin, Dave McLean, and me, and I think Billy White were in Bob's old green, what was it, a Ford?
The Dodge.
The old
Dodge.
What
green
year was that?
What
year was that thing? Green
It was
Van
the 65.
Oh man, I love it. We ate at the very first Taco Cabana. That was my introduction to Taco Cabana.
Yes, it was.
Aaron Beidel. So that was in '83, and Kill 'Em All was not out yet.
Kill 'Em All was not out yet. And so at that point in time, is Ron Zarzambek playing guitar and Slayer?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
That's the point. So I'm looking at August 24th is that.
So you never saw the band with Art? Oh, wow.
I never did. I never saw them with Art. But I went to parties in San Antonio and saw Carrion play all the same cover songs that he was doing with you guys.
Yeah. Well, with Kronk.
Yeah, but with Kronk, and they were doing Breaker and Restless and Wild, and they were doing all the Angel Witch and the Priest, and they were doing all that shit.
Yeah,
and it would just be packed in someone's backyard. And this is my introduction to San Antonio, meeting you guys, and just immediately getting involved with whoever had a metal band in San Antonio. The first gig that Watchtower ever did outside of Austin was an invitation given to us by you guys for that Helotus 4th of July picnic at Virial's Ice House.
Virial's Ice House.
Yes, and we played twice. Another band dropped the next day, and they called us back. We played 2 days in a row. We were so happy.
Helotus. Yes,
in Helotus, Texas. We were
Helotus was
happy.
So much further than I expected it to be when we left from Danville that day. Yes, it was. Yeah. And I left my guitar at Rick's house, and so I had to drive all the way back. And I made it just in time.
So I don't want to get off topic too much. I want to get back to Slayer real quick, but I forgot that you were also in
there you go.
Yay.
Evil Mothers.
See, most of the metal people don't.
Evil Mothers, another band out of San Antonio.
Yeah.
I remember
Bob has so many layers, he's a fucking onion.
Yeah, so that's what I want to get at, and I want to come back to Slayer, of course, but just for people that aren't aware of everything Bob's done in the past, besides all the Slayer and the metal stuff, you spent a lot of years in sort of the industrial metal scene.
I did. Was that a 45? That didn't look like
that's a CD.
Okay.
Out of the jewel case to prevent the glare.
Yeah, Evil Mothers, man, what a great band that was. What a lot of fun.
You guys are out of control, man.
Notorious, man.
Yeah, I remember seeing Evil Mothers, and at the time it was pretty it was kind of shocking. It was there was pyro, and the guys were wearing dresses. And,
I never burnt down a club. But boy, we got lucky.
Yeah, but
we had no idea why we were. There's no reason why people like us should have been playing with fire. Right?
Yeah,
It's
right.
true. All the time, man.
It's true.
But
All
were
the
you
time. We
also
got so lucky.
were you also in Petting Zoo and World Bazaar?
I was not in World Bazaar. I was in Petting Zoo.
You were in Petting.
World Bazaar was Kevin Tim played guitar, and he replaced me in Petting Zoo.
Okay.
He replaced he replaced the guy who replaced me in Petting Zoo. But and then Martyrhead, the Motorhead band that I had, our singer Andy, World Bazaar was his band.
All right.
Okay.
They were mad.
Yeah.
They were insane, man.
So
Yeah.
what drew you, I don't want to say away from metal, but what made you go put one foot into the industrial scene?
Well, it had started with all the great hardcore stuff that was happening in the early and mid 80s. I was so into that. Where the other guys in Slayer were much more metal oriented, at least definitely rock oriented. I was so intrigued by punk rock. I loved it. The Dead Kennedys were my favorite band. And I also liked Frank Zappa. I liked weird shit, right? But I loved the hardcore stuff. And then it got so good. I tried real hard to join the Offenders as a second guitar player.
That would have worked. That would have worked.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Pat thought so. Mikey thought so. JG thought so. Tony didn't, so we didn't do it.
Yeah.
You know? He thought I was going to try and take over. It's like, no, I just want to play rhythm. I don't want to play any lead. I just want to be fucking hard. They were the hardest band ever. I love that.
You were instrumental in getting Offenders on a gig with Hellstar, and
just a couple of years too early for that.
And Hell Dogs, right? An early Hell Dogs gig, is that right?
No, that was Slayer.
It was Slayer. Oh, so Slayer, Hellstar,
Slayer, the Offenders, and Hellstar.
Wow.
Hellstar opening for the Offenders.
Wow.
Because I thought the Offenders were a better band.
Wow.
Apparently, in San Antonio, Texas, on that evening, I was the only person who thought the Offenders were the better band.
Wow. Yeah,
because they were just about booed off stage.
Yeah, you set them up. You didn't
and
realize
2 years later, they would have been embraced.
Oh yeah,
DRI had just created that whole genre, but this was just 8 or 10 months too early, man. But what a great band they were.
Arguable that DRI created that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, it certainly happened in that neighborhood.
Kings of,
right?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, Mikey Offender played on Dealing With It, so obviously there's.
I always forget that.
Yeah, Mikey Offender plays bass.
Mikey Offender was a force of nature.
Oh
man.
my God!
Damn.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So no wonder.
Is it fair to say that you were a punk kid who kind of gravitated towards metal, or you were a
No, I was a metalhead who just got really intrigued by the energy of the hardcore stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And seeing the MDC and the Offenders and the big boys when they opened for the Dead Kennedys in Austin fucked me up. Boy, those bands were so good and they were so tight and they were so energetic.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what's not metal about it? Well, the haircuts and the high screaming.
That's it.
So I kind of went in that direction, which led to the Evil Mothers gig, which led to the Pigface gig.
Right.
Yeah. Pigface. There's another one. Yeah. Did you ever relocate to Chicago to be part of that scene or anything?
I worked out of Chicago a lot, but never technically lived there. But when Martin had the Mattress Factory recording studio on Wabash, right around 20th, he had the whole third floor of this really scary building. I know I stayed there for at least a couple of months doing studio work. A lot of it ended up on Pigface, but a lot of it, Martin was doing remix work for Cleopatra Records.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, oh, Bob Dog, grab the sitar. And so I would just make some shit up and he would put it on there. And then I would go back into that very cold room. And then he'd come back and go, oh, this needs guitar on it right here. So I got to be on a bunch of records.
Nice.
So
I don't know what any of them are.
That's
The Martin
okay.
in question here is Martin Adkins, correct?
Yes, Martin Atkins from Pigface.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
The coolest boss in the entire planet.
you mentioned your nickname. I was going to ask you, where did Bob Dog come from?
Well, there was a band called the Hell Dogs that played with Watchtower a bunch of times. The original lineup.
More times than Slayer.
Yes.
More times
funny
than
that,
Slayer.
right?
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. The original lineup occurred. The fifth Beatle of Slayer is Tony Rodriguez. He was our pyro guy. And I guess he did lights too. But, lights were an afterthought. He was blowing shit up. And he would make the bombs, and he had this rig to set them all off. And he and I became great friends because Tony is a crazy person, and I love crazy people. And he was fucking mad. And so after I leave Juggernaut, because it's not the thing I want to do, Tony and I...
there's another one, Dave. He was in Juggernaut. He's the original.
I was in Juggernaut before the record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's best that I left because Eddie's fucking great. But no, I never got to play with Bobby. I left because the drummer sucked.
Oh,
he was awful. He was terrible. So
Bob's making friends today.
Yeah.
I'm not saying his name. I don't remember.
You're not saying anything wrong.
Because I leave Juggernaut, because their drummer isn't good enough, two things happen. I get in a band with Wilf Williams from GBH, their drummer, who's a bad motherfucker, and Juggernaut get rid of the guy that made me leave, and they get Bobby Jarzon back, who's the bad motherfucker. So we all win.
Yeah,
and they got Eddie Cotillius,
right,
who was another bad motherfucker. So they're a better band for it. And that's how the Hell Dogs began. It was absolute alcohol-fueled madness when Wilf was living in town. And when he came to his senses and left, we got Louis Carsales.
Yes.
From Death Tripper.
Yes.
And we became a very, very fast, I guess, almost speed metal, but kind of hardcore, because Louis was really into the hardcore beats.
Yeah.
And no one liked us. And that's where the name came from. My middle name is Lawrence. So I am Robert L. Catlin. So I became Robert L. Dog. Robert L. Dog, right? Robert L. Dog, and it became Bob Dog.
I like it. It has nothing to do that your last name is Catlin. Dog, cat.
Which is
dog,
funny.
Cat,
There's
Bob,
a guy
cat,
here in town who refuses to call me Bob Dog and always calls me Bob Cat.
Yeah.
God bless him. I'm with it too, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well,
let's fast forward to the current situation. I mean, SA Slayer, after all that history that we just heard, is reuniting with Jason here on vocals in place of Steve Cooper.
Yes, this is going to be fantastic.
How did this come about?
Well, you're going to have to ask somebody else for the full details. From what I gather,
I can fill in the blanks for you, Bob. Let's hear you. No, from what you've heard.
From what I gather, we've been talking about it one to another about doing a reunion gig for decades. But as bands go, there's been a certain bit of miffy, snippy's the word, snippiness from time to time between different members, where this guy doesn't talk to that guy because that guy said something 10 years ago, and this guy said something last month, and it would then change and go away because it's all just meaningless, dramatic brouhaha, right?
Yeah.
But of course, Don and Dave have always been very, very, very close, and so
they're like brothers. They really are like brothers.
Yeah, no, they've been very, very close since way before I ever met them.
Yeah.
And so it came up that they both had time not necessarily to spare, but free time to where they could do something together. And so I understand it was Dave who said, well, let's do a Slayer. And then it all comes about from Don and Dave then reaching out to Art and Ron and you.
Yes. This was finally and is going to happen. It was finally sort of like not just an idea, pencil and paper, when there was an opportunity to basically shit or get off the pot. And that is Hell's Heroes. The guy's name is Christian Larson.
Mm-hmm.
And he is also a little bit of background, and people can, in the comments, you know, our listeners, they can correct me all they want. This is just from what I know, because it's, you know, the reason Watchtower has recently played a slew of gigs and gone to Germany and did everything that SA Slayer is about to do is because of this man down in Houston named Christian Larson.
Oh, fantastic. I can't wait to meet Christian Larson.
He's a special man. He's a great, yes, you need to meet Christian. He had last year's Hell's Heroes. One of the headliners was Queensryche. And the way that the phone call go, and me and Dave had Michael Wilton from Queensryche, who's a wonderful man and a wonderful band, as we all know. He says that it was Hell's Heroes, Christian Larson, that got them to do this Origins tour, which has done so well. They're in Europe next year, and they're doing the EP, Queen of the Reich, Lady Wore Black, all that stuff that Joe Anthony broke the band and said, and the Warning, and they do the songs in order. They come out and they open with Queen of the Reich, and
that's gotta be fantastic.
This is exactly how the Watchtower thing got together. I got a call from Christian. Hey, what would it take for you guys to just do this and play the Energetic album? Just come on and just please. And I said, well, shit, I don't talk to those guys much anymore. I had lunch with Rick the next day, and boom, it happened. This is very similar how this SA Slayer came about. I was approached, like Bob was saying, there's some truth to it. For decades, you guys have been talking about it. But this had to be probably 5 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. I was at a gig in San Antonio, one of the places downtown, I can't remember, Alamo something, can't remember, Rock Box. It's the same. Yeah. It's not the Rock Box, but it's one of those over there.
Al Capone's.
Yeah, it's one of those. And Jarvis Leatherby from Night Demon is standing on the back porch of the loading dock, looking at me in the eyes. He goes, so I've been talking to Van Stavern and Dave McClain. I go, oh, really? Not really putting it together because I'm slow. And he's going, and they say that you're the guy if the world ever wanted to see Slayer, SA Slayer, get together and do this. And I go, I'm waiting for the phone to ring.
Yeah. Well, no, I remember having a very similar conversation with Art. Oh, Jiminy Christmas, whenever we were just putting Martyrhead together, which I want to say is about 2008.
Sounds right.
He and I were bandying about reunion stuff. And certainly your name was the name that came up. But there was some drama at that point. So
I feel the love. It's an honor. Just let it be known to the universe that it is an honor to be asked and thought of immediately to be the one standing in the boots of Steve Cooper singing these fucking songs that these men created Cooper, right? when they were kids. Yeah. And you know, I appreciate that backstory you told about you guys meeting Cooper and pulling a James and Lars. Hey, we gotta get this bass player Cliff Burton in our band. After seeing him play with Trauma, and he goes, "Yeah, I'll do it, but you got to move to San Francisco." Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't need to move to San Antonio for this because I live right.
No,
down
this is going to be great. I'm so glad that we're doing this. This is wonderful. You know, I thought that I had played my final gig. I didn't think I was going to be playing anymore. So the opportunity to do this, opportunity, it's a gay word. But, you know, to do this is so cool. And then to get it with, so not only am I going to play a couple of gigs, but with a really high caliber bunch of people. I mean, golly, I just never thought it would happen. So,
well, you kind of, and this should be an obvious, but it's not. Let's just put the fucking cards on the table and turn them all over, Bob, because when you think about when you guys, you know, your humble beginnings, when you were putting Prepare to Die and Go for the Throat together with, you know, most of the same members on both records, a unit, right? Now we, you know, it's amazing. Just, I've watched you guys grow as players. I mean, I'm not the same singer I was in 1983. You're not the same guitar player you were in 1983. Look at Dave, look at Don, look at Art, look at Ron. Ron is like a global phenomenon now.
I know.
So it's like this crazy, crazy world. And just in case people are wondering the lineup, for Hell's Heroes, 3 guitars.
Yeah.
So when all the crazy harmony, all the harmony shit is going on, you're going to hear underneath it, because it used to just be Donnie going on bass.
Well, you know, we might just have some triple harmony things going too.
I love it. I love that idea. I love the
all three guitars from SA Slayer's history.
Yeah. And the Hell's Heroes gig, it's going to be great. Art's able to do it. And so at first there was a bit of skepticism, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good word.
About having all 3. But I like to think of myself as being somewhat charismatic.
You are. You are very charismatic.
And so everyone agreed that let's do it. So let's do it. So it's going to be great.
I think it's wonderful.
It's cool, you know, and this is me speaking as a fan. Just, you know, a lot of times a reunion like this happens, a band that's kind of been dormant for decades or whatever, and they're able to put some sort of reunion together, and it's maybe 2 or 3 guys from the original lineup and then some stand-in dudes. Or there was a guy from back in the day who was a significant figure in that band and isn't able to do it for whatever reason. I feel like what you guys are doing is sort of covering all the bases. I mean, any SA Slayer fan is going to get everything they want that day, except for Steve Cooper or Chris Kronk,
which
because
you can't do.
So what do you get instead? You get Jason. So I mean, how can you argue that? Yeah. So if you're looking at the big picture of this, and you're an SA Slayer fan, and you've either never been able to see the band or you remember them from back in the day, what you're getting here is as good as you could hope for, and then maybe even some bonuses thrown in when you think of the 3 guitar gig.
Well, the 3 guitar thing is going to be cool. I mean, Jason, you're on at least 2 tracks on Go for the Throat, right?
I am. I'm on.
You're on Power to Bird and Go for the Throat, if I remember correctly.
I think I'm on the first song and the last. I'm on the first song and the last song.
If I remember correctly, it was Michael Solis and Billy White and you, and I, and Donnie,
and Gene Bartholomew.
And Gene Bartholomew.
Yeah.
Yes, doing the background vocals for those songs.
Yeah.
So how many gigs do you guys have lined up for SA Slayer?
As far as I know.
So far,
2.
there's 2, because we're going to do Keep It True.
Okay, we're
headed to Germany to do Keep It True, but that is the end of April, and Hell's Heroes is at the end of March.
In Houston. Yeah.
Correct. So Houston, and then
Laude Koningshofen.
Laude Koningshofen.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Man.
So
yeah, it's a real shame that Art's not going to go to Kit. and we're
Yeah.
not going to do the 3 guitars there because
Yeah,
I know he loves playing there. He's played there twice.
Yeah.
We played there together, you and I, with Art, as part of the Texas Metal Legion.
Yes.
That was
a
5 years ago.
Yeah, that was a fucking blast. So
that was a great band. That was a lot of fun.
That Kit audience has seen me and Bob and Art playing "Prepare to Die" songs.
I remember the footage.
Yeah, and we had Mike Solis with us. Harlan Glenn got up and did a song because Juggernaut was there the same day. It was Chip Alexander on drums.
True Militia.
Yes, it was Scott Womack on bass. So it was like old Juggernaut, Watchtower, Militia carrying.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we played.
It was fucking great, and it was crazy. And I sometimes wonder if some of the younger fans at Kit actually knew what they were witnessing. They probably had to get schooled by someone.
Yeah.
What is this? What is this Texas? What is this?
Who are these people?
Texas?
I don't remember any records from this band. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's exactly the name said it all, and I thought it was a pretty good idea by Mr. Villarreal. So
yeah, no, that was a great thing. Arthur put that together. That was a lot of fun to do.
But now we get to do it for real.
For real.
Have you started rehearsing yet?
No, and we have not started thinking about warm-up gigs either. Hint, hint, cough.
That was my next question because people are going to ask. People are going to
I know. Me, I'm asking too.
And if you're paying attention out there, remember when Watchtower started booking these festival gigs, they had to do some warm-up dates. So I'm not making any promises on behalf of the guys, but just kind of
see what happens. The other thing that I like is that all the hyperbole that I see for the SA Slayer, there's always a teaser that there are going to be more gigs announced, more dates. And it's like, all right, well, let's get them.
Somebody let Bob know.
Yeah. Well, there probably should be a San Antonio.
Yeah, there really should be.
There should be a gig in San Antonio, maybe 2.
Makes sense.
I mean, maybe we can do one in San Antonio before Hell's Heroes. But see, Riot is opening for Saxon.
See, Don's isn't he? He's booked.
I don't know how he's gonna do this.
I don't know.
It's gonna be crazy.
I don't know. I hope that he realizes that this is. I mean, I know Riot kicks ass, and I know they play a lot of notes. But he's going to need to realize this is some somewhat challenging material.
Well, he's
even though he wrote it, he may be thinking, I'll just knock it out. It'll take him at least a day.
Yeah, he'll.
Because I tell you what,
he's good. He'll figure it out.
He's very, very good.
Yeah,
but he was also expecting you to be really good when he wrote these riffs.
Yeah.
It's some very serious metal.
Yeah, so Riot's playing with Saxon the night before our gig at Hell's Heroes. So anything that we're going to have to do, like a warm-up gig or rehearsals, is going to have to be a week before. Yeah. And I don't think that our camp has actually realized this yet.
Well,
they're planning right here on the Talk Louder podcast.
Well, it's just a reality check is all. We have our work cut out for us, whether it be calendar date lifting or whatever.
Yeah. Well, but you know what? I bet everybody involved with this is so good that they're gonna. We know Davey's prepared. He's posted some Instagrams of him playing through Slayer tunes and just killing it.
Yeah, so, he's not even breaking a sweat.
Yeah, well, that's Dave McLean, man.
Yeah,
I'm so excited. I remember I was on the road in the Evil Mothers opening for Pigface, and we were crisscrossing the country when Sacred Reich was touring with Oh, that sex band out of Florida, the Genitorturers.
Genitorturers, right?
The Genitorturers and Sacred Reich were touring at the same time that Pigface and Evil Mothers were touring. And so we were crisscrossing, running into one another. And I remember being so incredibly impressed with how fucking good Sacred Reich was. And how incredibly envious I was of Sacred Reich and their big, badass fucking tour bus, because Evil Mothers was in a Chevy P30. And we maxed out at about 65 miles an hour. So we would just see that purple Sacred Reich, but no. Yeah. So it's so exciting, after seeing him play with that band, which was so good. And then all of what he's done with Machine Head. And it's like, well, that's about as rock star as you can fucking get, right?
Well, yeah, he's
if not, it's real close.
It's close enough for rock star work. Yeah.
And I've played with some cats with chops, and I've played with some cats that are badass, and I've played with some cats that are intimidating. But man, David Wayne McLean III is all of those in one, and I've known him since he was 14.
Yeah, you have.
So how very exciting, man. Not to mention everybody else.
Yeah, this is
about one of y'all.
I brought this up the other day when we chatted, Bob, and I'm going to bring it up in front of Dave because I wanted us to save some of it for this episode. But this is family, and I get emotional when I think about how long I've known all you guys, how much of a pretty much a fanboy that I am when I start talking about this shit and the songs you wrote and just, Watchtower and Slayer, the San Antonio Austin connection and us, going up to Houston and playing that gig with Hellstar. And that was the Gene Bartholomew thing, the Metal Forces thing.
I remember from, old home week and whatnot, but, I distinctly remember Slayer crashing at your house. I remember Watchtower crashing at my house.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt
Watchtower crashing at Rick's house.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very familial. I remember staying at Billy's house a couple of times. Yeah. It was like that. It was a real close friendship, which you would think of as being as close as family. So that makes it really special. And then the fact that these guys are so fucking good. You see footage of Riot and Don's just killing.
Once again, he doesn't look like he's breaking a sweat. And and when Dave plays, this isn't work. It's like buttering bread.
But and then also I have not much of a metal guy, I'm not gonna lie. I haven't paid a lot of attention to the Go for the Throat material in 40 years, right?
Right.
I guess a couple of years ago, a movie bought the rights to one of the songs. And this was right about the time that Bart Gabriel had gotten involved and released both of the records on one CD on Skull Records out of Poland. So 35 years I didn't pay any attention to it, but boy am I now.
Yeah.
Man, those are some wicked riffs. Golly. Donnie was on, man. Donnie was on. And the rest of the band were fucking show-offs. And so there's all these little riffs and Dave's doing this stuff and you only do it once, but it's got to be absolutely right. Every song's filled with them.
You guys always came across to me as the Texas answer to Mercyful Fate.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And because you guys had a lot of riffs in one song, you guys had, and still were different because, like Watchtower has a lot of riffs in one song. And you guys had a lot of notes and we had a lot of notes. There was, there was that, but you guys were leaning into what was really happening with the new wave of British heavy metal. You guys were.
We were certainly more metal than you guys were.
That's
and
what I
the double
loved about you
guitar
guys.
thing.
Yeah.
So you guys didn't have the double guitar thing. You guys had the madness of Doug and Billy and their crazy Rush math.
Yeah.
Just playing beyond. But we were really into the tight Judas Priest, Iron Maiden,
Yes.
Mercyful Fate.
On steroids.
But those were our influences, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
But we had Ronjar Zombek, so of course it's got to be on steroids. Gee whiz, that guy's amazing.
Yeah.
And so even back then, you listen to that, he goes, how old was he? He's 18? 20?
18
or 19?
19 years
when
old.
the recording gets done. It's like, that's some really, really incredibly advanced electric guitar playing to be coming from a child in South Texas, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's an amazing motherfucker right there.
Building his own guitars as a child.
Oh, building the one I'm playing on the gig. Hell, yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Well, I think this is
and building his own amps too. At least his own pedal boards.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He had done a lot of work on the amplifier, but the pedal boards that both of us played, he built. And they weren't just other pedals that he put in a different box. He built all the pedals.
He made the guts. He built the pedals. Yeah.
Yeah, he built the pedals and then put them all into pedal boards. And they were the things that we liked, you know, MXR flangers and such. And he made perfect schematic copies of them. And he had one for him and one for me. Man, I was so lucky. I had so much cool shit because of Ron.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we all had
that he made. I had two guitars made by Ronjar Zombek. Right? There are famous guitar players somewhere who wish they had a Ronjar Zombek made guitar.
And you have two.
I'm some oaf, and I have two. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I love about this whole SA Slayer thing. Number one, the fans are going to be super stoked about it. And number two, you guys touched on it. There is a brotherhood among everybody here that goes back decades to when you're barely out of your teens. And I think it's really cool that a bunch of guys who knew each other when they were 17, 18, 19 years old can look at each other today and go, we're going to Germany, dude.
Isn't that amazing?
A field trip. It's like a field trip of buddies from way back and, you know, barely out of high school. And you guys are still friends and you're still doing this. So the fans get what they want. They get to see some SA Slayer, and you guys get to take the brotherhood out and do this big time for the fans and for yourself.
Oh, man, all these wonderful tunes, man. It's just, you know, if you like guitar-oriented heavy metal, if you like heavy metal with songs about the devil with someone singing really high, fuck, man, this is a really good set.
But see, that's what from Texas. You're describing Mercyful Fate from Texas.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose so.
Yeah.
But you know, there was Cooper with that big Confederate flag. Right? He had that whole country boy thing going, man.
Yeah, he did.
You know, and that was before the Confederate flag meant that you were a Nazi.
Yeah.
That meant that you were some kind of weird redneck country boy.
Yeah, which he was.
He brought to it.
He wore cowboy boots. He was the first guy I ever really saw to dress like Rob Halford but wear cowboy boots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ride the demon out. Isn't that kind of about when he was living in the country and he and his brother were bull riding? I know that has something to do with how that song got written.
I bet, because they probably rode some bulls that were like demons.
I want to say that if you were in your early 20s about the build of Steve Cooper and riding a fucking bull,
98
that's
pounds,
be terrifying.
98 pounds wet.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Even if he was heavier living in the country, even if he was $1.25, that's terrifying.
I got two words for you. Fuck that.
Yeah, no, but he came from a bull riding weird country subculture.
Yeah.
But
it'd be interesting to know what the origins of Steve Cooper are.
Yeah, because
you're such a excellent devil music writer and singer. And then he also was writing country music that was good enough to where it was getting submitted to people like George Strait.
Wow.
And I want to say he had one submitted to Randy Travis that were like real serious country songs going back more to his roots.
And this
having
was
nothing to do with the devil.
And this was way back when, post Slayer.
Post Slayer.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, Donnie will know. Talk to Donnie because he and Donnie were much closer.
Yeah.
But this would have been in that weird '90s thing. I used to run into Cooper in weird places, but I'm not going to talk about that, man.
Well, that's all right.
But Austin Highway was a weird place.
All right.
That's where you worked. Didn't you work at the Planet K on Austin Highway?
Yeah, I did work on Austin Highway for a long time. Austin Highway was a weird place. That's funny. You caught me.
Yeah, well, I just incriminated myself.
Yeah, well,
that's some San Antonio shit. You know, I was talking with Jerry Tuten. Bob, do you remember Jerry Tuten?
I do. In fact, I mentioned him to someone just hours ago.
Wow. Well, you know, Jerry Tuten's my partner, man. He lives like 5 minutes from me here in Lockhart.
I didn't know that. Well, please tell him I said how.
Well, I will. And you know, we've been in Broken Teeth together since 1999. So
he produces this podcast.
Yeah, he does produce this podcast.
Well, fantastic.
Yeah. So you're saying hello to Jared right now because he's editing everything.
Well, then howdy, Jared.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
We were talking the other day about San Antonio and it being a weird place with, the baby powder on the back of the car, the train tracks, and we brought up the donkey lady and all that shit.
The donkey lady.
Yeah.
So the chicken foot dancer, all that stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
What was the abandoned insane asylum with the game boards taped or plastered all over the wall? They called it the Fat Farm or something like that.
Well, there was the Midget Mansion.
Oh, there was that too. Yeah.
The Fat Farm is Jared brought that up the other day when I brought up the donkey lady. He brought up the Fat Farm.
All kinds of weird stuff in San Antonio.
What a wonderful place to come from.
Yeah. It explains a lot. There you go. That's the hometown.
And one thing that you guys didn't even touch on was that at the very same time that we were at the Bob O'Neill Sound Studio recording the Go Through the Throat album.
And this is on San Pedro, right?
No, this is on Broadway.
Broadway, that's right.
Where it hits Mulberry.
Okay, that's right. That's right.
I was hanging out there a lot because I wasn't working. I was going to college. And the Butthole Surfers at the time were recording Psychic Powerless, Another Man's Sack in the exact same room on the exact same gear. And so I would go by, and if it was a day that Slayer wasn't doing any work, well, then I was just hanging out with the Butthole Surfers while they were creating that thing. And so, man, I tell you, there was something in the water because that's an amazing piece of work right there.
Yeah.
That they did right there at the Bob O'Neill Sound Studio. I watched the whole record get done. And then the great hardcore compilation that came out of there.
Yeah,
that Watchtower's on.
Texas hardcore compilation.
Yeah, the cottage cheese from the lips of death.
That's right. Artwork by Gibby Haynes. Plan 9 Records.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. That shit.
You know, I know that this is going to make me a redneck, okay? But that's okay. I've heard every single record a bunch of times. That's my favorite Watchtower.
What?
The raw, in your face, fuck you.
The first meltdown.
They're not even a guitar solo yet, early in the song's creation. That is what I remember me and Tony Rodriguez driving to Austin with our PA system when you guys would do private parties, remember?
Yeah.
We would show up with that horrible old Fender PA system, and that's what you would sing through.
Mm-hmm.
When Watchtower would do one set of Watchtower and then one set of Rush for private parties.
Pretty much.
Those were great gigs.
Those were great days.
But that is the Watchtower era of that cottage cheese, which is so in your face, which gets back to the punk rock thing that was going on in Austin in that era.
Well,
It was
isn't
just in the water, dude.
Isn't it odd that Bob O'Neill Sound Studios, the boss, the Butthole Surfers, and then ultimately Slayer, SA Slayer, is responsible for my very first vinyl appearance. And we have that in common probably with the boss, Bob O'Neill. Yeah.
Oh,
I think that the story went like this, and then we'll put a cap on this. We were down there because you guys, via Bob O'Neill, I think, had seen Watchtower, and you guys had been, up in arms about us and telling Bob all about Watchtower. We were brand new. You guys had a head start. I joined Watchtower in May of '82. So and I met Ricky Warhite at Def Leppard Crocus in '83. And we had a handful of originals and a bunch of covers, pretty much like everybody did at that time. So we meet you guys. We get to.
Boy, I remember you guys just fucking killing Accept.
Yeah, we did a bunch of Accept.
I mean, killing it, man. Goddamn Billy White on that Blue Flying V.
One guitar playing
like
Accept.
Huh?
One guitar playing Accept.
Yeah, but with him, it's like, well, it works great. Yeah, but he was a magician.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So we're in there, waiting for the Butthole Surfers to finish their session. And so Rick Shreves is there, and he's putting the tapes up. He sits down in the chair, and he puts up our tapes, and he's playing like very early Watchtower that we had been invited by Rainforest Records and Bob to record the very first version of. Ultimately ended up being Energetic Disassembly, but this was before. I mean, we recorded that record like 3 times. I don't know if you remember the lore. But Energetic,
I didn't know that.
Energetic we recorded it at Boss down there in basically your studio, what we're talking about today. And then we re-recorded it in Austin at Cedar Creek.
I was unaware of that.
With brand new equipment. Rick got this badass new Tama and, so we wanted to change gears a little bit, and the band had grown a lot in a little bit of time. So, but anyway, back to the story. Rick Shreves is putting our tapes up, and he presses play, and Meltdown comes on, and Gibby and Paul Leary are sitting there going, "What the fuck is this?" And they're looking. It's these guys, it's these kids over here, and we're in the corner, and the guys in the buttholes are, googly eye at these weirdo Austin kids, that play this kind of odd, strange metal, and they're going, "Can we put one of your songs? We need one more songs for our hardcore compilation."
Yeah.
We were like, "Fucking awesome.
Yes.
Hell yeah, take it, run with it."
Yeah, man.
So that's how that happened. I remember it like it was yesterday, and it was great. And then we all went to Taco Cabana.
Yeah. It always comes back to Taco.
But they were really good then.
That's right.
They were really good then.
Well, what's cool about that record, it has DRI on it. It has The Offenders on it.
It's a great record.
It's
a great record.
It has a bunch of Texas punk bands.
Great. The Hugh Beaumont Experience.
Yes.
Fucking awesome, man.
Yeah.
Can you find it anywhere?
Fearless
available?
Iranians from Hell are on there.
Of course, Fearless is on there, right? The Marching Plague. But who was that crazy person from Dallas?
I don't know.
Stickmen with ray guns.
Yeah, that's right.
Stickmen with ray guns. I hung out with them all day. Bobby Sox. What a bizarre afternoon that was for a high school kid to hang out with Bobby Sox all day.
Wow.
But I was pretty fearless as a kid. So, drugs and crazy people never scared me at all.
Well, I think you turned out fine, Bob.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've always thought that, though.
Oh, jeez.
I've always thought that.
Bob, thanks for spending so much time with us today, man.
Well,
It's been awesome.
It's been useful to you.
Oh yeah, it's been useful, and there's a lot of people out there that are looking forward to this. They're looking forward to seeing you guys play. I know.
Oh boy, I sure am.
They're all.
I ran into both Art and Ron at the exact same place less than 1 week ago. So last Saturday.
Where were you at?
So exciting to me. I haven't seen Art in months. Right? I used to see Art all the time because of Martyrdom.
I'm sure it wasn't Taco Cabana. Where was it,
It was
Bob?
not at Taco Cabana. And so I was like, Art, wow. And so I had just started talking to Art, and then Ron walks up. Wow. And I think that my enthusiasm to see Ron made Art sad because it was more enthusiastic than I showed to see him.
Oh, well, that,
Which,
hey,
I'm sorry. But I haven't seen Ron since 2019 when we did those gigs.
wow. So,
'Cause
yeah,
he played with South Texas Legion when we played here, right?
yeah, the
'Cause we
Fitzgerald.
did
Yeah.
Watchtower,
That's
and he
right.
did. So that's 5 years. I haven't seen Ron in 5 years.
Wow.
We've
that's
communicated now
Yeah.
via the computer about this Slayer stuff, some detaily guitar note zingy things,
Sure.
but just to run into both of them, boom,
Yeah, that's beautiful.
it
That's
was wonderful.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
But it was during intermission, so we didn't get to hang. We had to go
Right.
back to our seats.
Where were you? At a movie?
No, we went to go see Beat,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
which was phenomenal.
Yeah, that
It was
makes
really nice.
it makes perfect sense that you all were at that.
Well, yeah, you figure, Jar Zombek would probably be there, giving Steve Vai a couple of tips, right? But then Art is very into Adrian Ballou. And so I was really surprised to see Art there. I wasn't surprised to see Ronnie there.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see Ronnie because I haven't seen him. But, if anyone can understand what Steve Vai is doing, it's Ron Jar Zombek.
Yes.
Because Ron Jar Zombek is either a magician or a wizard.
Magician.
They're not the same thing, and I don't know which he would be. I think he's more of a wizard, Ron.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's more of a wizard.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'll buy that.
Yep.
It's
So
hard to
yay.
argue. It's hard to
We get
argue.
to see music played by wizards, and I get to be involved with it.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yes.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
Jason,
We're gonna play some metal next year. You and I.
We are going to be playing. Hell, you're going to be playing metal here in town just a couple of minutes, right? Don't you have gigs coming up next month here in town?
Broken Teeth is playing down there in January. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I'll be making the trek down there to do some SA Slayer rehearsals.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Let's see about making that happen. That's going to be so fun.
You guys, now that you made this announcement, you have homework to do. So,
Well, I will admit that I have been doing a bit.
Yeah,
Good.
myself.
Good.
Here's a fly on the wall moment for everyone. I have in my minivan. Yes, I drive a minivan. It has a USB input, right? So I have a thumb drive with "Prepare to Die" and "Go for the Throat" that they just loop. So on my drives to work, I'm singing Steve Cooper.
There you go. That's how you got to work it, man. You got to get it in the brain again.
Soaking it
That's
all
right.
in. Soaking
That's
it
right.
all in.
But I do not sing my parts on "Go for the Throat" and "Power to Burn." I just let the stereo sing those parts.
Well, there you go. Well,
You're going to have to sing that live, though. You do realize.
I don't have to.
No, I have to.
That's right.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
More
I'm
pressure.
trying to decipher these incredible Don Van Staven riffs,
More pressure.
I'm going to have
more
to grunt out some background thing.
The whole thing is quite wild and bizarre, and I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, man, I'm so excited. I just can't say.
Yeah, thank you,
I'm
Bob.
so excited.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you
with
so
us.
much, man. What a treat for the fans, the reunion of SA Slayer. Bob, we appreciate your time today. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave with our special guest, Bob Catlin from SA Slayer on the Talk Louder podcast.